Welcome to our World of Fiery videos, covering topics of everyday importance to print providers. Today we will cover how to minimize print problems by using a PDF workflow.
When we put together a page, we know now that we will have images and vectors and fonts. So here's my page. There's two other things I want to cover just briefly here. The first one is overprinting. So this goes back to the early days of Adobe Illustrator and the PostScript language. If the designer overlaid two objects like this and they wanted them to blend together, they'd set a characteristic on the top object called overprint. Okay, and that lets us see through there. In newer applications, we have controls for transparency. So I can blend those two colors together much more sophisticated way than just the simple overprint. I can blend them with all different levels of opacity. Remember, too, that the designer doesn't always consciously use transparency. They go into their layout application and they do something like this drop shadow here. This drop shadow is going to use transparency in the page definition, that is in the PostScript or PDF that I create, in order to render this effect. So I always have to deal with not just getting the images and vectors and fonts right, but also making sure that I have the right tools and controls to get my overprints and my transparencies to print correctly. Complicated problem? Good news is I have a relatively simple solution for you. PDF workflow. So let's compare just for a second the difference between the Command P workflow, or Control P, or what we call the print workflow, which you may be doing now. When I say print from any of these applications that I create layouts in, or designs in, I have a whole range of settings. Guess what? All of these settings, and I'm just showing you a subset here, can spoil your print. Okay? Remember that unless you have just one digital press and one operator, if you're using a Control P workflow, and you carefully watched everybody on every shift, they all probably have their own favorite ways of setting some of these things, which means one job prints well and another doesn't print well, or a problem you've probably encountered where a job printed great and the customer loved it. They come back for a reprint and you can't make the reprint to save your life because something in this very complicated world changed. Consider the alternative. Less clicks for one thing. If I say export in InDesign, or if I'm an illustrator, I can just save. Illustrator naturally writes PDF files. I will export a PDF X4 file. PDF X4 was defined in 2008 by the Ghent Working Group to properly define not just color spaces, which they've always done in these PDF X's, but also proper handling for overprints and especially transparencies, which is your biggest challenge today. So if you choose this workflow, export PDFs, enable some kind of an automated workflow such as with hot folders, process everything as PDF, probably using the Adobe PDF print engine, if you have that, the APPE on the digital front end. This is one way to minimize a lot of problems which you can't really control. There's no way I can teach you about how to look at a transparency and adjust it for tonality and color balance and solve a print problem. So just a moment. I try not to talk too much about product in these sessions, but I did want to point out that if you choose to do the PDF workflow, and you have certainly one of the newer Firies since 2012, there was a test of PDFX done with a bunch of digital front ends, number of presses and digital front ends. And in 2012, the Fiery was awarded this level of qualification called perfect. Okay? No other digital front end in the world has ever achieved this perfect qualification when they were offering it. All the presses they surveyed, or digital front ends rather, either didn't get any mark at all, or they got a passing mark. In this case, we got the perfect mark on the Fiery. So any of your newer Fiery System FS100 or later have this perfect PDF characteristic.
Thank you for watching. For additional resources and e-learning classes on this topic, visit our website. To see all recorded sessions and register for upcoming World of Fiery webinars, please visit efi.com/WOF webinars.